and I appreciate that. So welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kim Strobel. So I'm a teacher and an education consultant. I started Strobel Education back in 2016. I had this crazy harebrained idea that I could go around and deliver professional development to teachers and really empower them to step into their lives both personally and professionally. On top of that, I get to travel the country and do a lot of motivational speaking, both in schools, but also like in the corporate world with businesses and leadership teams. And I'm a happiness coach. So that doesn't mean that I'm all like sunshine and butterflies and unicorns all of the time, but it does mean that I have practiced and researched and investigated the topic of happiness for about 20 years. So I always tell people I am a practitioner of happiness. I have happiness habits in my life. They are a part of my everyday life. I don't always hit all of them that I want to hit, but I almost always have certain ones that are running in the background of my life. So, but we're not here to talk happiness today, although I know that educators need happiness, and I do a lot of keynotes on the science of happiness for educators because one of the things I know about educators is that we feel stressed and overwhelmed and frustrated many times, and we kind of allow our job to steal kind of our personal time, and we've got to get that back. But let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here with you all. If I can let's move. I don't want this. Aha, I can move it. There we go. All right, let me go to my screen and let's get started. So this is about starting a learning revolution. And the reason that we call it a learning revolution with Genius Hour and growth mindset is because these are two topics that I am super passionate about. I really, obviously when you go into teaching because you want to educate children. There's a certain set of skills that you believe that kids need. But we also do way more education than just our subject area. I think that we educate the whole student. It's like I always say, we don't want them to leave our classrooms and just be a better writer or be better at social studies or be better at science. Like we want them to leave our classrooms and go out into the world and just really make it a better place for all of us. We want them to go out and just be good at life. And so sometimes I feel like that kind of social aspect has been stripped from the curriculum. Like we no longer have time to kind of work on, character traits or values or words like integrity and courage and kindness and empathy. And I believe, that we have to do way more than just focus on academics, that what our kids really need from us is they need for us to focus on relationships and the emotional component of learning. And so let me just start here. I already did the who I am. Here's what I see as the problem. I see that there's a lot of problems right now in education, and I call an ace. But teachers, obviously, all across the board, all across the U.S. are having to teach to the test because our schools get scored on our ability to get our kids to score a certain way on the test. We as teachers get evaluated and scored on how well our kids do on the test. And so many times I feel like we have this curriculum that's constantly running in the background, and teachers are constantly having to be like, what's going to be on the test? What do I need to cover? These are the pieces that we need to focus on. And in the meantime, what happens is I think that everyone suffers in that system because it's really not about meaningful learning. It's not about what lights a fire in a kid. It's not about letting them work in their zone of genius and discover what kind of learning they really want to do at least a part of the time. Another issue, I think, oops, I went too fast, is we're living in a system where there are many times outdated expectations that are placed upon educators. What I mean by that is if you do the research, and I've read a lot of books, Dan Pink has a book called A Whole New Mind, which I'm a big proponent of, and Dan Pink talks about how the current system that we're currently in is like based still on the 1950s system that was created and developed probably even 1900s for education. And what I mean by that is that Dan Pink says that we've gone through different ages of what the skill set was that was needed in order to produce an income and be able to take care of your family. And so he talks about the agricultural age. And he said in the agricultural age, you know, that lasted for like 100 years, that the set of skills that you needed was you needed to be a man, and you needed to be super strong and have big muscles and marry a woman who hopefully birthed you a bunch of boys. And you had to be able to work really long hours and plow, cultivate, fertilize the fields. And if you could do that, you could produce a decent living for your family. But then what happened is we actually left the agricultural age, which was like the #1 way that people survived. And we went into what he calls the industrial age, or not even what he calls, this is what everybody calls it. And he says we started to create machines that replaced human backs. And that's the truth of the matter, right? We started to see steel companies, machine companies, automobile companies, like factory after factory after factory after factory. And we started to create like tools and machines that were doing way more manpower than a farmer could do himself, you know. So now we have machines that can do the work of 100 farmers. And so the skill set changed again. And the skill set you needed was like my 95-year-old grandmother who worked at GE for 35 years of her life. And as long as you could go and work on an assembly line, and you could, you know, effectively and efficiently and repetitively produce the same set of skills, then you can make a living for your family. And the majority of people in the industrial age worked in factories. But again, what happened was the landscape changed. We then left the industrial age, not that we still don't have factories, but what we know from research is that now 80% of things that are made in factories are now shipped out across the ocean. So if I asked all of you right now to check your clothing tag, I'm going to bet you that no one is wearing anything that is made in the US. I am looking here at my desk, I'm looking at my lamp, I'm looking at my computer, I'm looking at my vase, and I'm pretty sure none of those things were made in the US. And so what happened was we actually left the industrial age and we entered a new age. And that is the age that we've been living in, and it's been called the knowledge age. And the people who succeeded in the knowledge age are like your left brain, super smart, academic type of people. Like if you could read, memorize, and understand information, and you were a good student, if you could do computation and understand mathematical algorithms, you flourished in our school system. And so it was like these academics who went on to become CEOs, CFOs, doctors, lawyers, accountants, software developers, engineers, right? And so that type of person who like thrived in the education system, they were considered kind of elite, super smart, super academic. They went on to get like the very best jobs. And that, in the knowledge age, that is where our school system was built. Our school system was built on the fact of, hey, you have to have these set of skills, and we're gonna focus on these set of skills only. And if you can acquire all of them, then you can go out into the world and, you know, go to college and get a degree and make a good living. And what Dan Pink actually says is, just like we've left every other age, we are now leaving the knowledge age. Why? Because knowledge is now at our fingertips, and we are using automated intelligence that is replacing so many of these left brain capabilities. So what I mean by that is, you know, for example, Applegenics created an app not too long ago that what would normally take a human being to write 1,500 lines of code, okay? It would take a human being one day, like 8 hours, to write 1,500 lines of code for a software program. Applegenics has created an app that will write the same 1,500 lines of code in 1 second. And so what this means is that it's not enough just to be a strong academic anymore. In fact, Daniel Goldman, who is a strong researcher, says that IQ is responsible for about 4 to 10% of a person's career success. Yet IQ, really academic intelligence, is what our school system still to this day spends all of its energy on. And so for us as educators, that's really stressful because, you know, while we know that it's important for kids to read and write and do mathematical computations, we also know that there are a ton of students who have other zones of genius that can be so much remarkable in other areas, and they never get the chance to demonstrate that because we are so driven by the test and these kind of left brain capabilities. So, you know, we have that. We have, of course, out-of-touch policymakers who have made our job extremely difficult. Again, I feel like because we're so driven to deliver the standards, and hey guys, I teach standards-based grading. I'm a proponent of standards, okay? It's not that I'm not a proponent of those. The issue is we have way too many that we're responsible for per subject area, and so we've kind of kicked the social curriculum out the door. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, we actually had character traits, and we actually spent a lot of our time working on those character traits with kids. But then all of a sudden, here came the testing and the anxiety, and you know, we took kitchens out of kindergarten classrooms because we were like, hey, we don't have time for kindergartners to be cooking or baking. Like, we got to get them reading. We got to get them ready for that test. And so I feel like many of us have like felt this anxiety, and we don't get the time to really nurture the relationships and to really implement a strong social curriculum so that they basically know how to be good at life too, right? Because it's so much more than just being a reader or a writer or a mathematician. And then, of course, I've already explained this, but I do feel like many times we have, you know, a curriculum and a test that is missing a boatload of kids. It's missing kids who have a different type of intelligence, who are smart in a different way. I mean, I always tell this story, but I went to school with a guy who barely graduated from high school. Like, he suffered through all his reading classes and his math classes. And while he reads well enough, obviously, what you need to know about him is he's the type of guy who could build, create anything. Like, he can read directions, he can put together something, he can build anything. And he now runs a multi-million-dollar electrical business and a multi-million-dollar solar panel business because he was intelligent in a different way. And thankfully, school had not beat him down enough to where he didn't feel like he had something to offer the world. And of course, I do feel like many times, you know, learning is not meaningful, therefore it does not motivate our students. And I always kind of ask teachers this hard question, you know, what percentage of your day would kids say they are learning stuff that feels really meaningful to them? And that's a hard question to answer because I certainly in my own classroom did not feel like everything was meaningful or a large percentage of it was meaningful. So what I want to do now is I'm going to talk about two topics that fire me up because for me, they hit these problems. They offer an alternative. What I mean is we all still have to play the game of school. We all still have to have our kids take that test so we can play the game of school, but there are other things that we can implement that are also going to send a different message to our students. And so what I actually want to do is I'm gonna exit this for a minute and I want to go back to the chat. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I want to go back to the chat and I just want to see what any of you are thinking. So has what I said resonated with any of you? Do you see that these are potential problems in our current school system? Are these frustrations that you two are having as teachers? I kind of want to hear from you and just see, like, what is your response to what we've talked about so far? Okay, Sarah says, yes, there are a lot of frustrations that I feel like we are dealing with. Yeah, I think it's really hard whenever we kind of know what works as teachers, and then we sometimes feel really disconnected from what we're kind of forced to do. And our leaders feel the same way. It's a catch-22 for our administrators who are trying to lead teachers, and they're trying to do the right thing, but they're also trying to make sure that they stay up with the state recommendations, that they stay in good standing. I mean, they have a huge responsibility. And so it's a catch-22 for them as well. Margaret says, it's like you've been in my head. I teach senior English, all levels. I just had my first day today, and many of these things were running through my head. Absolutely, Margaret. Kristen says, I teach kindergarten, and I feel like we push them too fast, too hard. They do not get time to build the social emotional side. Spot on. I completely agree. The testing is so frustrating, especially in special ed. Oh my gosh, I so agree with you. I actually had some girlfriends over today. I work from home. I've been on like a 4-week traveling thing where I was in different cities every day, and now I'm working from home. So I did this random thing and invited some girlfriends over who happen to work from home, they are stay-at-home moms. And one of the ladies was saying that the iLearn test, which is the Indiana test, that her kid who really struggles in school brought it home. Of course, it was all stapled up. And then, but she just said she took it back in the room, and literally she, as the mother, started to shake because she knew that probably again this year he was not passing. He's not going to pass. And she feels scared for him. She feels frustrated. She doesn't want him to lose confidence, and these are the things that parents are feeling too. So someone here said, I don't see your first name, but I don't teach a core subject. So yeah, exactly. Those extra subjects totally get put in the background, right? Like we don't have time for our kids to sometimes have art and music and business because like we have to be so focused on those core subjects. And so, yeah, Micah says lawmakers should be given standards they have to meet from educators and held accountable on how they perform during their term. If they don't get a passable score, they should be made to resign. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't know exactly what the disconnect is with our policymakers. And of course, I'm sure it's not all of them. I'm certainly not dishing the state of Indiana. They too probably have their hands tied in an even bigger system. But I do agree that it's time for us as educators to try to at least take a little bit, I don't think we can change the system at all. I think we can't change the people who are serving in those positions. I think all we can do is change what we do in our classrooms. And so that's actually what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk about 2 topics that I think are just so important to teach. And so one is called growth mindset and one is called Genius Hour. And each one of these topics is a full day professional development, 6 hours. I go through the whole growth mindset curriculum. Same thing for Genius Hour. That's a full day. And many times we go to schools and teach these. And I also host some regionals, which I'll tell you about at the end. But what I want to do is I just want to whet your appetite. I just want you to get to thinking about these 2 topics. So let's start with growth mindset. And basically, growth mindset, a lot of what I've researched and studied comes right out of Carol Dweck. So for those of you that don't know, I feel like Carol Dweck is kind of the grandmother of this thing called growth mindset. She wrote a fabulous book called Mindset. And one of the favorite quotes in that particular book is this one here. She says that studies show that teaching people to have a growth mindset, which encourages a focus on effort rather than on intelligence or talents, helps make them into high achievers in school and in life. Now, my favorite part of that, folks, is that this is a huge focus on effort. And when you think about even our current school systems, we've all been taught and trained to focus on intelligence or talents. I mean, that's what we celebrate. We celebrate the A's and the B's. We celebrate the distinguished honor roll and the honor roll students. We celebrate the star basketball players or the star baseball players. And so when we're talking about this, I'm not just talking to you as an educator, but I am also talking to those of you who are parents, because we do the same thing. We praise our kids for oh, good job. You got an A or, oh, you're such a mathematician. Your brain is amazing when it comes to math. And actually when we do that, what that does is it does two things. First, it makes kids really vulnerable because eventually they're going to do something that is hard. And when their entire self-worth is based on how they performed intellectually, then the first time they don't perform that way, it makes them doubt their self-worth. What we want our kids to know is that, like, you're way more than how you did on this test or that test. You're way more. I always tell my son, who's a basketball player, like, Spencer, when you go out on the basketball court and you score 28 points, that's fantastic. Your mama's standing up, she's screaming, she's yelling. But guess what? When you go out the very next night and you have 15 turnovers, it makes you no less of a player. It makes you no less of a person. Like, you are way more than how you perform on the basketball court. And it's the same thing with intelligence and with academics. And so what Carol Dweck is saying is, guys, we got to shift it. We got to quit talking and celebrating so much about intelligence and talents. And instead, let's talk about effort, because our kids nowadays, they're not gritty kids. They're not kids who persevere when they encounter struggle. They're actually, many of them give up as soon as they encounter any kind of struggle. Many of them purposely choose the easy route over the hard route, and so that they can ensure the easy A over really learning something. And we forced them into this because that's what gets celebrated in our school system. And so what she's saying is, hey, let's change the focus. You know, I am not celebrating the kid who gets the easy A. No. I'm celebrating the kid who erased his math problem 14 times, and he erased it so much that he now has a hole in the paper, and he continued to stick with it anyway. That is what I'm celebrating. That's what I'm talking about in the classroom. When I see kids who are hustling, that's what I'm putting my focus on. When I see kids who are gritty and perseverant and choosing to do challenging tasks, that is what we're talking about and celebrating in the classroom, not their academic portion of their grades. Now, do we sometimes say, yeah, hey, good job, right? Like, good job, you got an A, that's great. Was it hard? No, it was super easy. Okay, guess what? I don't want things to be easy. I want to know that they actually challenged themselves. I want to know that they actually learned something. And so she's done all this research that really does show that, hey, when we shift the focus, it has a direct effect on their ability to achieve at school, but it also helps them achieve in life. And so let me talk about two of these mindsets. So you have what's called the fixed mindset, and you have the growth mindset. And so we all are a mixture of both. There are a lot of things that Kim Strobel has a fixed mindset about, and there are a lot of things that I have a growth mindset about. And so it's not like one person is a fixed mindset person and one person is a growth mindset person. Here's what they mean. So the fixed mindset means that you believe that your skills and intelligence are carved in stone, and that you don't have the capacity to develop, to cultivate, to improve them. That basically you're either born with a certain aptitude or certain skills or certain talents or intelligence, and you can't do much to change them. So let's talk about this, because really this is what we've all been led to believe. And hey, I am the same way. You know what? There were certain kids that came from certain families that I always knew, like, those kids are super smart. They will excel academically. So we know that there is obviously a genetic disposition that we all, let me go back here a minute. I didn't mean to do that. I lost it here. But basically, you know, we know that we're all born with certain aptitudes. You know, certain families seem to have a strong athletic talent. Certain families are more artistic, or, you know, produce kids who can sing and dance and do art. And then other families, you know, have kind of that smart gene running through. So we're not denying that genetics is a part of this, okay? We're not denying that. What we are doing is we're saying, hey, here's the deal. You are not just the cards you've been dealt, because we now know that even if you were not born with the ability to do math really easily, we know enough about the brain that we can grow your brain in that area, okay? That even if you were born and you were not artistic, that we can put you in a very intensive set of an art class, and you're never going to become Picasso, but we can actually teach your brain to draw and do different things in ways it couldn't before. But the fixed mindset is just like, hey, I just don't have this, I'm just not good at it, and I'm never going to be good at it. So let me give you a couple of examples just personally of what I've had a fixed mindset about. So for those of you who know me, you know that I'm a runner. I run about 30 miles a week. If you can't tell by listening to me, I talk fast, I move fast. I'm a pretty intense person. But I have really poor eating habits. And I've had really poor eating habits forever. Like I will eat lunch and then I'll grab like a Snickers candy bar. Then at like 4 p.m., I'll get the Chips Ahoy cookies down and a little cup of milk, and I'll eat some cookies. And then, are you ready for this one? This one's probably gonna make you fall out of your seat, but it is truth. Before I go to bed, I would go to the cabinet and get 4 Hostess cupcakes, and that was my little snack before I went to bed. And so I had a very fixed mindset around my ability to eat healthy. Because like as my friends, my girlfriends entered their 40s, you know, they're all doing like the sugar detox or the low carb, and they're using some kind of app and they're tracking all their calories. And there I am over there like doing the Advocare cleanse that's supposed to last for 25 days. And on day 2, I'm cheating and I'm back to eating my Hostess cupcakes. And so I have really felt like there is just like something wrong with me. Like I don't know if I don't have the willpower. I don't know why I can't change it. It's like a flaw in me, and I just have to accept it because I keep failing at it all of the time. And then, you know, I remember when I worked as a curriculum director and we had a health coach, and every month you have to go meet with the health coach. And I remember like the health coach was like, well, like, what's your current fruit intake? And I'm like, well, I try to eat 1 piece of fruit per month. And she about passed out right there. And I'm like, it's true. I don't eat fruit and vegetables. So my goal for a whole year was to eat 1 piece of fruit per month. And then she forced me to change it to 1 per week. And I did it. Now, that being said, folks, for years, this has been my struggle. And it was really because I had a lot of limiting beliefs about my ability to change that, okay? Now, I will tell you that since then, I have made some major changes, and I believe a lot of it had to do with what I've learned about growth mindset. I also have a very fixed mindset about my ability to draw. I have a fixed mindset about my ability to pay attention to details. I have a fixed mindset about many things in my life. And I want you to kind of just reflect yourself, you know, what is something that you just kind of told yourself, hey, I don't have this skill and I'm not good at it and I wish I was better, but it is what it is. I'm never going to be better at it. That is a fixed mindset. And so what we know is that our students come with tons of fixed mindsets. Our students come to us and they're like, well, my mom's not good at math and I'm not going to be good at math. Or nobody in my family graduated high school, so I'm not very smart. You know, they come with these kinds of fixed mindsets where they know the hand they've been dealt, but what they don't know is that they actually have the ability to grow their skills, to grow their aptitude, to grow their intelligence. And so that is actually the growth mindset. The growth mindset is you believe that your skills and intelligence are things that can be developed, cultivated, and improved, that you actually have the capacity to learn and grow, and that skills are built through effort, okay? And that everyone can change and grow. So when I think about areas in my life where I've been growth mindset oriented, you know, I always tell the story that if you would have watched me in my sophomore speech class, I could not even read from my note card. Like I was such a nervous wreck to give a speech in front of 25 students that I couldn't even read my set of index cards that had my notes on them, okay? And so like if you looked at that girl back in her sophomore year of high school, you would have never been like, oh yeah, well, she's gonna travel the country and talk to thousands of educators in a big auditorium. You have been like, no, that girl is not going to become a motivational speaker. Like she can't even talk in front of 25 kids. But here's what we know. right? First of all, we know that on average, the average human being is using about 10% of their potential. 10%. And that 90% is up for grabs. But the problem is we don't believe in our ability to develop things that we're not good at yet. And that's the same thing with our students. You know, I teach students all the time, like, I can do hard things. You know, I personally do hard things every darn day. And so I teach my students, like, that's one of the mottos. I can do hard things. I can do hard things, because when we do hard things, that's how we grow our brain. When we put forth effort and perseverance and grit and hustle, we know that we can change the trajectory of our lives greatly. You may not have been born a good reader, but I know that if you put forth the effort, and yeah, you might have to work 25 times harder than the kid next to you. But if you're willing to do it, we can get you to become a much better reader. You can develop and change your skill set. And this is what we have to do with our kids. We have to implement, and kind of what we really have to do is we have to extract these old stories, these old beliefs, these old inadequacies that they have about themselves, and we have to download hope. We have to download that, hey, so much of this is actually in your control, but it is going to require great effort. It is going to require great hustle. And so, you know, I want you to kind of think about that, because I would venture to guess that if I asked all of you, hey, look back 10 years ago. Look back 10 years ago and identify something that you were not good at. It could have been cooking. It could have been doing budgets if you're like, you know, a principal. It could have been doing leadership. It could have been organization. But what is something that you were not good at, but with practice, you became a whole lot better? All right. And so I actually want to see those things in the chat box. I want to see what is something that you've had a growth mindset about, that you weren't good at it, but you decided you wanted to be better, so you worked at it, you practiced it, you cultivated it, you developed it, and lo and behold, you improved upon that. And so I want to look in the chat box and see what you're thinking. Oh yeah, I see that we're having some great conversations in there. Awesome. So I'm waiting to hear from you. What is something that like you weren't good at 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but you are good at it now? That you had to work hard at it. It didn't come easily to you. You had to be super gritty. Micah says details in communication with others. Yeah, communicating with others. That emotional intelligence piece is an area that many times we have to grow in. Danielle says, I struggle to read with expression. Yeah, I always tell people, like, I was the little blackbird back in elementary school who struggled with reading, and then I end up becoming a literacy consultant. You know, I grew my skill set. I don't know, it doesn't say who this is, but it says they learning how to do things based with traveling, like direction reading and following. Yeah. Kim says too much time spent taking and preparing for standardized tests. C. Stout says, I paint pictures. Yeah, that's one of the things that Dan Pink talks about in his book. He says, like, I am not an artist. Like, I have no ability to draw. But then for 12 intensive weeks, he took art classes at this like renowned art facility in New York. And on week 1, they had them draw a portrait of themselves. And on week 12, they had to draw a portrait of themselves. And he shows it in the book. He shows you how much better he became just in 12 weeks because the teacher taught him how to turn and grow the right side of his brain so that he could see things differently. And so like a growth mindset is not walking around and like everybody just, you know, pretending like you can be anything you want to be. It is not that, okay? It's not that like I can say, okay, well, I want to be an astrophysicist, therefore, no, Kim Strobel is never, no matter how hard she works, going to be an astrophysicist. But what we do know is that there's this huge percentage of the pie that's available for our kids and for us that we're not utilizing because we gave up too quickly. We gave up as soon as we got frustrated. They give up as soon as they encounter a challenge. Their belief systems are determining everything. Rachel says, being excited to learn. I had no interest in college, but went because my parents made me. Now I love taking courses and learning everything I can. I was always the middle of the road, quiet student. that wasn't rewarded for being the smartest kid, but also didn't get attention for being behind. And I think I lost interest for a long time. Yeah, you know, my husband is a super right-brainer, super design artist. He designs like big restaurant signs and billboards. Like the way he sees things blows my mind. But he hated school because he never got to work on being a creative. Like he went to one art class, you know, every week, but that's the only time he got to work in his zone of genius. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about teaching our kids that you actually can be really good at other areas. And that even the areas you don't like, but we know you need to get better at, that we can get you there. That's what really lights a fire in me. And so when we're looking at this, all right, I love what Carol Dweck says here. She says, the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. And folks, I have found this to be so true, because when she says the view you adopt for yourself, what she's talking about is she's talking about your belief system. She is talking about your belief system. For example, a while ago, when I just randomly said, I run 30 miles a week. That's been a part of my life, that it's like part of my cellular makeup. But how many of you, when you heard me say, I run 30 miles a week, how many of you who are watching this said in your mind, oh my God, I could never be a runner? That is a fixed mindset. That is a limiting belief that you're carrying about yourself. And that belief is profoundly affecting the way you lead your life. It is affecting whether or not you ever step into the gym, whether or not you ever decide to try to run one block, whether you ever decide to train for a 5K. And so what Carol Dweck is saying here is, like, our students and the beliefs that they hold for themselves is affecting everything they do or do not do. And I believe that, you guys, the beliefs that a person holds about themselves, those are extremely powerful. In my life coaching program, I work with a lot of women, and a lot of my work is simply getting old beliefs that they are carrying about themselves out of their bodies and downloading a new script. And it is the same thing for our students. And we have the great honor of being able to do that. When we think about beliefs, here's what we know. Okay, there have been all these studies done. And I'm going to give you one right now that has nothing to do with that picture. That's a different study. But I actually want to tell you the one about the 10 men who all needed orthoscopic knee surgery. So this was a major study that was done, and they took 10 men who all needed orthoscopic knee surgery. They put all 10 men under anesthesia. They made slits on all 10 men's knees. They had the same doctor do all 10, and all 10 walked out of the surgery center limping on crutches. When those patients came back at week 4, week 6, and week 8, 95% of the patients reported that their pain had been almost completely, drastically reduced, okay? All of them reported that their pain had been improved by like 95%. 95%. At that time, they were told, you 5 never had the surgery. We put you under anesthesia. We put slits on your knees so that your brain would be tricked into thinking you had had the surgery. You 3 over here had a partial surgery, and you 2 had the full surgery. And the men were blown away, okay? They were blown away. They knew they were some part of some type of research study. They didn't know what it was. What this proved, and we have a million other studies to prove this, is that the beliefs that a person holds can actually cause physical changes on the body. And you know, we know this because we know the placebo effect. We've heard about the placebo effect. And so that is how powerful beliefs are. That is how powerful beliefs are, because those are profoundly affecting the way you lead your life. Now, here's what else we know. If you think about this, the average person has about 70,000 thoughts a day, okay? By the way, if you're like a super stressed person, you're probably having between 110 and 130,000 thoughts a day. And if you're like a more Zen type of person, because I'm putting my happiness coaching hat on here for a minute, you're probably having around 50,000 thoughts a day. But the average human being has 70,000 thoughts a day. Now, what's interesting about that is that 80% of those thoughts are negative for most people. 80% of your thoughts are negative in a day's time for the average human being. So like if we take you back this morning to when your alarm went off, right? Some of you had like 27 negative thoughts before you even hit the bathroom, okay? Like you got up and you're like, oh, my back hurts. And then you're like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. And they're like, oh, I gotta go to school today. And then you get up and you walk to the bathroom and you're thinking about how bad your knees hurt. And then you get to the bathroom and you look in the mirror and you see that you have a fever blister that popped out. And then you go get your pants and you put them on and they're too tight. And so here's what we know. We know that your thoughts that you're having, check this out. Your thoughts become the words, right? They're either the words you say to yourself or the words that you say to others. And the words that you say become the beliefs that you hold about yourself. Your beliefs become your actions. All right, and your actions become your habits, and your habits become your reality. So let me take you back to like the whole 4 Hostess cupcake scenario. So my thoughts were always like, I'm not a healthy eater. I can't become a healthy eater. I'm flawed in some way. I don't know why everybody else can do it, but I can't do it. And those were the words that became my belief system, which was simply like, I am missing something. I don't have the willpower that others have. And those beliefs became my actions. And my actions were that I was used to having sugar basically after every meal, and those actions became my habits. And so my habits were that my body gets triggered at 10 p.m. every night to go to the cabinet, get my 4 Hostess cupcakes, and pour myself a glass of milk. And then those habits become your reality. The reality was I still wasn't a healthy eater. So if you think about that when it relates to your students, right, who tell themselves, I'm not smart, I'm never going to get it, I might as well give up, I shouldn't even try, I can't compare, I'm not enough. And those become the beliefs, and those beliefs are the actions that they do or do not take, which become their habits, which become their new normal, which become their reality. And so as their teachers, when we teach a growth mindset curriculum, we actually teach them how to download a new set of stories. We teach them how to be growth mindset oriented versus fixed mindset oriented. We teach them the value of effort and perseverance. We teach them a 3-letter word called YET, Y-E-T. You know, you're not a good reader yet, but you're working on it. You know, you're not good at staying organized yet, but we're growing that skill set. That 3-little word changes everything for them. All right. So, oops. I want to take you back a minute. So if we're saying that words are so powerful, I want to leave you with this when we're talking about growth mindset. Now, this happens to be something that hangs in my son's bathroom, but I know the power of words, and I know that words become the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And I know that the beliefs that we hold about ourselves profoundly affect our life. And so this is my son's manifesto. It hangs on the back of his toilet so that every morning when he woke up and he went to the bathroom, he'd have to read it. Now, I'm not saying yours needs to look like this. I'm not saying that, you know, you can create your own, but how powerful would it be if you created a classroom manifesto of like, what is it that you want for your kids? And every day you started the day out with 60 seconds where they read these words, and they read them with gusto, right? Like, today is going to be a good day. I am strong. I am smart. I am courageous. I persevere through challenges. And not only that, but you read it with them, but then this becomes like your centerpiece. Like, whenever they make a mistake, we go back to the board. You know, hey, if I fall, I get back up. Things can be hard, but I can still brush myself off and try again. Like, I use it as a teaching tool. It's not something they just randomly read with no feeling and no meaning. Like, this guides so much of what we do. But can you imagine if every day the kids are saying powerful words where they actually say them and talk about them and start to believe them. And when they believe them, that changes everything. So that's just one example. I have like 20 other examples in the full day workshop. I give you lessons and I show you how to teach the growth mindset curriculum, how to launch it and all of that. But I wanted you to walk away with at least like one thing you could do to maybe start working on the beliefs that your students are holding about themselves. And I want to share with you a couple of teachers I've worked with. This is Whitney Leatherland. And I went into Whitney's 5th grade classroom and did a lot of growth mindset work with her and her kids. And she says, incorporating growth mindset into my 5th grade classroom has been a game changer. I used to see so many of my students struggle and feel undervalued. They simply didn't know they could believe in themselves. Now that they have changed their beliefs about themselves, they know how to change their outcomes. I love that. This is Amanda Atkins. She teaches high school. She said, growth mindset empowers my students to reframe their understanding of success. Today's students have been indoctrinated with the belief that landing above the pass-fail cut on a standardized assessment is the ultimate measure of their worth. That line of thinking leaves the failing students defeated and the passing students complacent. Instead, it demands that educators move beyond the shallow data to explore the true needs of students, to ask the tough questions about what students need and value in their educational experience. And so the growth mindset curriculum, guys, is basically something that you can do at the elementary, middle, high school level. And it's really a new way of just conversing and talking with your kids and downloading a new set of beliefs. All right. Whew, I could talk forever about that, but now I need to hit Genius Hour and I have like 15 minutes to do it. All right. So I always say that growth mindset and Genius Hour are two topics that I feel like are married together. They're two separate full day trainings, but I do feel like they go together really well. They complement one another. And so Genius Hour is based on Google's philosophy. So when you work for Google, they encourage their employees to spend 20% of their work week researching, investigating, learning something that is of interest to them that is not directly related to their job description. Okay, so like they say, hey, what's something that you just are interested in, that you want to research and learn and investigate? And we're going to give you 20% of the work week, which is 1 day a week, to simply do that, to be creative, to choose something you want to know more about. The thing that's interesting is that Google has found that 20% of their best ideas have come from, 50% of their best ideas have come from the 20% of time they give their employees to be creative. So for example, Gmail was like a passion project of one of their employees. He was super frustrated with inter-office email. And so he just decided that for 20% of the work week, every week for like 3 years, he was going to work on creating an inter-office email that was way easier, way more efficient, way more practical. He worked on his project. He presented it to the Google team. The Google team loved it so much that they took it and they turned it into what we now know is Gmail. Okay, so Genius Hour is where you give kids, and I will tell you, I shoot it straight. I wish we were doing this like 1 whole day a week with kids, but to be honest, we're lucky to get 1 to 2 hours a week where we do the same thing with kids, where we let them think about, hey, what is something I want to learn about? What is something I'm interested in? And we give them the time to actually work in their zone of genius. And I will tell you all, it is magical. I've done it at the elementary and I've done it at the middle and the high school. And so I want to tell you how I discovered it. I was actually a curriculum director at Jasper, and I walked in to do an assessment on a Friday in Abby Kennedy's 10th grade ELA class. And there was a sewing machine at the front of the room. And I said, hey, Abby, I'm just curious, what's a sewing machine doing at the front of your room? And she said, oh my gosh, Kim, I went to this training and I learned about Genius Hour. And she said, every Friday, every period, works on a passion project. It's not directly related to our curriculum. She said, I have one kid who's learning about website development, and she's creating a website for her aunt's bakery who's getting ready to open. I have another student who wanted to sew, so we went down to well, I call it home ec. I think it's called Family and Consumer Sciences now. And we got a sewing machine, and she's teaching herself how to sew. She said, I have another student who's extremely interested in genealogy, and every Friday he works on creating a genealogy report for his mother that he's going to give her for Christmas. And she said, Kim, you've got to be in here. She said, I will tell you that there is more learning taking place on Fridays than the other 4 days combined. And she said, it's changed everything in my classroom because students who are usually like in their groups, right? Like you have the athletic kids hanging out, and you have the artsy kids hanging out, and you have the kids dressed in black hanging out, and you have the quiet ones who never speak up. She said it has changed their relationships with each other because they all are working on something they're good at, something they're interested in. And she said they've got a whole new respect. They're getting to know people who are different than them. And folks, when I was in there, that's exactly what I saw too. It was absolutely amazing to see the kids on fire with learning, to see their confidence grow. And for that kid who, like, you know, academics isn't his thing, but he's a super creative, or he's a musician, or he's a designer, or he's a big picture thinker, and he gets to show the kids what he is good at, what he's interested in. Let me just tell you, it does so much for their confidence level. They feel valued, maybe for the first time ever. They feel valued in their skill set. And so, this is Abby, and this is what she actually said. There was more learning that took place on Fridays during 50 minutes of Genius Hour than the other 4 days combined. My high schoolers were on fire, and the wallflowers who used to sit back and not say much began to be completely engaged when they got to work in their zone of genius. And then this is Mindy Corner. She's actually a second grade teacher. She came to one of my day-long Genius Hour trainings. And she says, I'm always on the lookout for something exciting and challenging to light a fire with my kiddos. Genius Hour has proven time and time again to be just the right thing to ignite the spark that encourages their passions, challenges their learning, and keeps them from coming back for more. So I know earlier, Ryan Oppie, who came to both Growth Mindset and Genius Hour a few years ago, and I don't know if he's still on this webinar or not, but still to this day, he sends me like things that he's doing with his kids. I mean, he has his kids involved in cardboard projects. He has them coming up with innovative ways to create projects based on their interests. Like, I think it's like 3 years later, and he will still send me a text message every now and then and be like, this is what my kids did. And it was really neat because like he was so on fire with it, but he also has grown in his ability to teach both the growth mindset curriculum and the Genius Hour curriculum, and he sees that it's working with his kids. And let me tell you, it's a struggle at first. I'm not gonna lie, because so many times these kids, especially the kids who are more fixed mindset oriented, they freak out. They're like, what do you mean I get to pick what I wanna learn? Like, can't you just tell me? Like, can't you just give me a list of topics and tell me exactly what I need to do? You know, because we've really kind of shut down creativity. We've really kind of banished it, and they don't know how to be creative. And Dan Pink says, hey, we're leaving the knowledge age. We're entering the conceptual age, and the conceptual age is all about creativity. And so we've got to get creativity back in the classroom. We've got to get project-based learning. We've got to get innovation back into our classrooms. Okay, whew, I'm going to stop the share and go back to the chat because I want to see what everybody's thinking. Good, Ryan's still on there. Okay, Ryan says, we just started it, and Ryan, I think, is fourth grade teacher. We just started it this year because he's done it previous years, and we showed videos to start their mind to start spinning on what it is they want to learn. And that's one of the things in the full day training that we talk about is like, kids don't even know what they're interested in because we've killed their curiosity, you know, like we tell them, this is what you're going to study, this is what you're going to create, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to perform. And so kids actually, we have to front load them. And in the full day training, I give you like all of the stuff. I give you like examples of videos to show them. I give you websites to take them to, just to kind of get, you know, get their wheels turning, get their brain thinking. Amanda says, can you give us some ideas of projects that you've seen in the past? Yeah, well, so I saw like the high school, Amanda, I saw, you know, the person who created a web page for her aunt's bakery. I saw the kid who did a genealogy project. I saw a kid who started his own podcast. I saw a kid who organized like this giant dance-a-thon for Riley's Hospital. At the elementary level, I've seen kids who took on like woodworking projects. One kid created their own bakery business. One kid created their own recycle bins. Another kid created their own fishing pole. Another kid created their own YouTube channel. I had a fifth grader, and I actually think that she's on this presentation, but her name was Kristen. And she was like a very creative kid. And she wasn't your like kid who wants to learn to read. She didn't like math. And like she told me, she said, Mrs. Strobel, like I do all of that stuff because, you know, Mrs. Leatherland says it's really important that I learn to read and do math. But she said, I really don't like it, but I do it. I do it all week long because I can't wait till Friday when I get 1 hour to work on things I'm interested in. And she even tells me on the video, she's like, I'm very artistic. She's like, I like to go in my grandparents' kitchen. I like to bake. I like to make crafts. I like to write my own song lyrics. And that girl, that fifth grade non-academic girl, that year, what she did is she created her own beauty skincare line using natural elements from her grandmother's kitchen. So I literally remember, and I have this on video too, but she is showing me a sugar scrub. And she says, Mrs. Strobel, I had to do the research and I found that cinnamon has the ability to penetrate the subcutaneous layers of the skin so that it can rejuvenate your skin cells. And then she went through like all of the oils that she had to try and test to make sure they weren't too oily, that they were reacting with the skin the way they needed to. And so she created this whole beauty skincare line that year. It was amazing. She was so on fire, you guys, that I was there on Fridays, and I got there, I was there in May, and there were 3 weeks left, and she came up to me and she said, Mrs. Strobel, here's my notebook. I have 88 Genius Hour ideas. And she said, I'm going to have to work on them in the summer. But she said, Mrs. Leatherland said that even though there's only 3 weeks left, I can work on my next one. And my next one is that I am creating a YouTube channel for lady bosses. And Mrs. Leatherland says that you're a lady boss. So I was wondering if I could interview you next Friday at 10:45. And I was like, yeah, you know? And so, and Ryan's popping in there too and showing you guys a lot of the things that his kids have created as Genius Hour projects. Amazing. I had a middle schooler who hated that the volleyball knee pads would never stay on her knees. So she like spent this whole time researching and creating a knee pad that would actually stay on your knees and not slide down. Okay, so Micah's like, is there a quick start guide to Genius Hour? Well, that's the whole thing, Micah, right? Like I need 6 hours with you all to go through it, but let me share some ways that you can find out a whole lot more. Let me go back to sharing my screen and let's see here. So I love this quote, right? If what we are teaching isn't meaningful for our students, it's a waste of our time and theirs. And that's a pretty powerful quote, because if we were to ask our students in a day's time, what is truly meaningful? You know, and even when you think back to your school years, the things that were the most meaningful that you still remember to this day probably were not the academic standards. Not that those aren't serving you today, because they are. But we're talking about real learning. We're talking about kids being highly engaged and highly motivated. You know, the thing that was really neat is when I was in Whitney's 5th grade classroom on Fridays, so I was only in there when she was teaching growth mindset and Genius Hour. And you know, as a teacher, when you walk in a classroom, within about 15 minutes, you can identify like, oh, there's your high ability kids, and here's your kind of middle of the road kids, and oh, there's the strugglers. I mean, as teachers, we just know how to recognize that. What was really cool, you guys, is I made it all the way to May, and I still had no idea who the higher ability kids were in Whitney's classroom. And not only that, but she let me know that 11 kids in her classroom that year were IEP kids. And y'all, I couldn't have picked one of them out. And you know why? Because I was only there during Genius Hour and Growth Mindset. I was only there when they were all working in their zones of genius. Okay. Oh yeah, there's her little sugar scrub, KRISTEN'S sugar scrub. Yep. Guide to KK Cosmetics. And she had like she had a glitter perfume, she had a sugar scrub, she had a roll-on, she had a lip gloss, she had a toner. It was amazing. And then, okay, I'm gonna skip this because I know that we're short on time. So here's the deal. This is what I wanna show you. This is Ken Robinson, and he wrote the book, The Element. And Ken Robinson, if you want to Google him, he actually did an amazing TED Talk called something like Why Schools Kill Creativity. And I pulled out a couple of the quotes in here because he says, we've come to think of real intelligence in terms of logical analysis, believing that rationalist forms of thinking were superior to feeling and emotion, and that the ideas that really count can be conveyed in words or mathematical expressions. In addition, he said, we believed that we could quantify intelligence and rely on IQ tests and standardized tests to identify who among us is truly intelligent and deserving of exalted treatment. And that, folks, that's why I do what I do, because I don't want one kid leaving my classroom feeling like because they're not the same mathematical level as someone else, or because you know, they don't read as well as someone else. I don't want one kid leaving my classroom feeling like they don't measure up to other kids. I mean, we're going to play the game of school. We've got to take the state test, but my kids are also going to get opportunities to work on their zone of genius where they get to build their confidence. Okay, so here's the problem. You know, we're tired of sacrificing learning for the sake of the test. We're losing too many kids, I think, who feel like they're not enough. Y'all are sick of boring PD. And when I go to school sometimes, I get the best feedback. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, this is the best PD I've had in 24 years, because they're so tired of somebody getting up there, first of all, who hasn't seen the inside of a classroom in years. And so, you know, we get sick of that, or, you know, we don't have the resources to implement. That leaves us frustrated. Traditional PD, we know, doesn't always work with your schedule, and securing a sub is sometimes an issue. So I want to give you 2 ways to find out more about growth mindset and Genius Hour. And I would love if you would share this with your fellow teachers. So I am doing workshops in the Midwest, and don't bail out if you're not in the Midwest yet. Of course, I've got people who get airline tickets and their schools fly them here, but I'm actually going to teach growth mindset and Genius Hour. I'm teaching them in Huntingburg, Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Maryville. It's either me or my associate. And so what you get when you come to a Strobel Ed workshop is I basically give you everything that you need to launch growth mindset and or to launch Genius Hour. And so I walk you through, hey, this is exactly the mini lesson I teach. This is how I introduce it. This is the video that I show. This is the brainstorming activity. This is the website we go to. I walk you through some options for how to launch it. But the other thing that you leave with is you get what we call a digital resource bundle. And so that is a Google link where you have access to a special document that gives you all the graphic organizers that we've created, all of the inspiring videos that we use, all of the mini lessons. Like, you leave the growth mindset and Genius Hour with mini lessons that are already created for you. Because one of my problems was, as a teacher, I felt really frustrated when I would go to a professional development and then I would go back to the abyss of my desk, right? And I would have to search for the resources, search for who has time for that? And so I wanted teachers to at least leave every workshop knowing that they had everything they needed to get started. And so obviously, you know, you're gonna leave the workshop, you're gonna feel really confident, you're gonna have the resources you need, and you will grow and evolve and develop your own later on. But we're gonna really lay the foundation for how to do this. And so you can go to strobeleducation.com, you can go to attend a workshop. You do receive 6 hours of credit for the course. That's one way to know more about these 2 topics. And then, Oh, like here, this is an example of a digital resource bundle. So like I have all the anchor charts that I use to teach the mini lessons. I have books and resources. I have the Genius Hour steps and graphic organizers that we use with the kids. I have lesson plan ideas. We have parent letters. You know, we have a series of like 20 mini lessons that we use both at elementary and at middle high school. You know, we walk you through exactly what to do. So you get like all of those mini lessons as well. This is just for those of you who are like, yeah, I want to know more about this, or I want to come to the training. Now, for those of you who are like, there's no way I can hop on a plane and come to a training, I want to show you that we also have these courses online. So what I did is I went to a recording studio and I basically, everything that I teach in the live workshop, we recorded it. And so, you know, you can watch it and go at your own pace. As soon as you enroll, the online course is available for you. We also have that online course available for schools, like maybe the school wants to purchase the online course so that they can take their time and watch each module with their fellow teachers and slowly implement it. And so basically, it's like each 6 to 8 hour online course is broken into modules, all right? And so like module 1 might be 22 minutes long or 43 minutes long. And then module 2, you know, might be 36 minutes long. And so you can kind of go at your own pace, and we make those available for up to 90 days. Again, I give you all the tips and strategies. You also get the ready-made lesson plans. You get everything that you get in a live workshop. But it's me standing in front of a camera telling you and coaching you versus being live. You get to earn your professional growth points, etc. And so all of that is online courses on strobeleducation.com. Now, here's what I want you to see. If this is a special bonus that we're doing for anybody on the webinar or anybody that you tell about this, so if you register for either a live workshop or one of our online courses by August 26th, we are going to give you a $40 discount. You just simply have to use the promo code FAST ACTION. Here's why I do that. I do that for 2 reasons. One, our regional workshops, I mean, we've had times where we have like 125 people signed up for those, but many times teachers wait till the last minute. And I'll be honest with you, that stresses me out because I have to make sure I have a room that's big enough. And if I have 50 people sign up 2 weeks before, then I'm having to change the room. And so I was talking to my team and I'm like, what can we do to get teachers to pull the trigger on this quicker than 2 weeks before the date? And so I was like, it always comes down to money, right? So if you register by August 26th, you can actually save $40 per workshop. You just have to put that promo code in there, FAST ACTION. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back to the chat box and just see if there's any lingering questions that you have for me that I can maybe quickly answer. Let me stop my screen share. Yeah, Felipe says, yeah, we've seen a lot of those boring PDs. That's a waste of time. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, Felipe, and Ryan Oppie would admit that. This is like, there's no boring PD. I mean, if there's one thing I know I'm good at, it's delivering high impact, engaging PD. And not only that, but like this is stuff that I think is important to know if you're a parent as well. So, okay. Oh, I'm seeing some of your comments here. Awesome, yeah. Oh, thanks for your passion for students, teachers, and schools. We're having a great start to the school year, and in part due to your, oh, okay, I know who you are now, yes. This is Mike. Yeah, we have one elementary school that has had much success with Genius Hour. We can all learn from growth mindset stuff. Oh, I love that, fantastic. Ryan says, once you start, the kids will be bugging you to do Genius Hour every day. Oh my gosh. Yes, so Kristen's wanting to know if Genius Hour works with kindergarten students. It does. But Kristen, I addressed this. It does work differently. At the kindergarten level, many times it's more like whole group projects because I'll just be honest with you. I mean, having all these little kindergartners working on different projects, I have not figured out a way to manage that. So yeah, it's possible, but it does have a different feel for it. Okay, guys. You know what? My email address is kstrobel@strobeleducation.com. If you have questions or you want to know more about it, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And gosh, guys, it's a Wednesday night and many of you are back in school And here you are spending an hour and 15 minutes of your time listening to Kim Strobel. So I just, again, always want to bow down to you all because I'm no longer inside the classroom. I'm trying to affect teachers who are affecting the students, but you guys are in there day in, day out, 7, 8, 9 hours a day, and you're doing it because you choose to show up for kids, and I have the most honor for you for that. I hold you in the highest regard, and I thank you so very much for continuing to show up for kids, because this is what I say: every kid matters every single day, all right? Every kid matters every single day. C-Stat says, what's the cost of the workshops? I think the workshop is like $209 for the day, but you can go to strobeleducation.com and it's going to give you all the pricing and all the details and everything that includes. Oh, thank you so much, guys. You're so complimentary. Thank you very much. Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Best of luck. And again, thank you for just holding space with me and allowing me to be part of your world. Keep doing what you're doing for students. Thank you all so very much.